So, have you ever wondered why the countries that gave us Shakespeare and, the internet are also some of the most skeptical when it comes to climate change? It's a fascinating question, right? Well, today we're going to dive deep into that paradox. Welcome, everyone, to our AMC Explainer. We're tackling Theme 2, Environments en Mutation, and we're going to look at the very unique challenges the English speaking world is facing with our planet's future. Okay, here's our game plan for today. First, we'll uncover a really surprising pattern in global opinion. Then, we're going to dig into the cultural soil where that pattern grew. After that, we'll see how these big ideas actually turn into real-world policy, and we'll investigate the powerful forces, we're talking media and money, that shape what people think. Then, we'll zoom out to get the big global picture, and finally, we'll wrap it all up and give you the tools you need to absolutely nail this topic for your baccalaureate. Let's jump in. All right, first up, the Anglophone anomaly. We're starting here because when you look at the data from all around the world on what people believe about climate change, a very curious pattern emerges. It's a pattern that really sets the English-speaking world apart, and it's pretty much the core of what we're going to investigate today. Okay, take a look at this chart. The data here is from a big global survey, and honestly, it's pretty striking. Just look at how the bars for the United States, Great Britain, and Australia absolutely tower over the others. Now, this isn't just some coincidence. It shows a clear, undeniable pattern of high skepticism in the Anglophone world. They are, for sure, outliers on the global stage. And all that data brings us right to our main question for today, a question that connects perfectly with our AMC theme, Environnement en Mutation. We're asking, why is this a distinctly Anglophone problem? We're not just talking about a language here. We're investigating a whole shared cultural and political space. So really, what is going on? Okay, so to figure this out, we have to dig a little deeper. Let's explore the cultural and ideological roots that might explain this anomaly. Because if you really want to understand how a country responds to a huge global challenge, you've got to look at the values and beliefs that form its foundation. Now, check out this quote from a scholar named Trung Vu. It's a really powerful insight. He points to this core cultural value, which is especially strong in the US, that he says hampers collective responses. Basically, it acts as a major roadblock to the kind of teamwork and cooperation that this crisis demands. So what is rugged individualism? Well, you can think of it as that pull yourself up by your bootstraps idea. It's this deep belief that you, as an individual, are responsible for your own success and that the government should, well, stay out of your way. It's a really powerful concept, but as you're about to see, it has some serious consequences when you're facing a collective problem like climate change. And here's the crucial point. This isn't just some opinion people have. For many, it's a core part of their national identity. And that fundamentally shapes political conversations. It creates this natural resistance to huge, government-led policies, the exact kind of coordinated action you need to tackle climate change. The whole idea of collective sacrifice just clashes with this really deep-seated value. Now, let's see how these cultural values actually translate into action, or inaction. We're going to compare two countries that have shared roots but have taken really different paths, Canada and Australia. Looking at their environmental policies side by side tells us a lot about how a country's specific situation can shape its response to a global crisis. This slide really breaks down the key differences. So on one hand, you have Canada, which has often been described as having policy inertia, a tendency to prefer talking and voluntary agreements over strict rules. But then you look at Australia. They've been facing urgent problems like massive water shortages, and that's pushed them to be more innovative. They've tried out community-led programs and have experimented more with what we call market-based solutions, basically using economic incentives to get people to do the right thing for the environment. And this table, it shows these different priorities in black and white. It's comparing national air quality standards, and it's super revealing. You'll notice Australia has a tougher standard for what's called PM 2.5. That's tiny particulate matter, often from bushfires. Meanwhile, Canada is stricter on gases like sulfur dioxide and nitrogen dioxide, which are often tied to heavy industry. See? Different problems, different priorities. Okay, let's shift gears a little bit, because it's not just about culture. We absolutely have to talk about power, which, as you know, is a key theme in AMC. We need to look at the powerful forces that are actively working to shape what the public thinks about all of this. And in the Anglophone world, this is a highly organized effort. And get this, we are not just talking about a handful of people who are skeptical. Research has uncovered a coordinated network of 91 different organizations in the US alone. And these aren't small groups either. They are well-funded think tanks and advocacy groups all working toward the same goal, to create doubt and block any real climate action. and they have the money to make sure their voices are heard. We are talking about a combined annual income of over $900 million. That's nearly $1 billion every single year, spent on campaigns to influence public opinion and politicians. It is just a staggering amount of money. This power isn't just financial, though. It's also about influence, especially media influence. Let's take Australia as an example. Research showed that newspapers owned by just one media company, News Corp, published over 8,600 articles on climate change in a single year, and a huge number of those articles were designed to question the science. This is a perfect example of the AMC concept of representation. You know how the media shows or represents reality to the public. So let's zoom out. We've seen what's going on inside these countries, the culture, the money, the media. But how does all of that play out on the international stage? How do these Anglophone nations act when they get together for those big global climate negotiations, the ones we call COPs? This timeline really tells a story of the whole turbulent history. And if you look at the US involvement, it's a total roller coaster. In 2020, they just pulled out of the Paris Agreement, which completely undermined years of global effort. And then a year later, they just rejoined. It's a really powerful example of how the internal politics of just one country can completely derail international cooperation. So even with all these agreements, there's still this massive gap between what's promised and what actually happens. The developed nations, including major Anglophone countries, still haven't delivered the money they promised, which creates a lot of mistrust. And their initial resistance to a loss and damage fund, which is money to help countries already suffering from climate disasters, created huge divisions. It really highlights this fundamental problem of climate justice. Okay, let's bring it all home. We're going to take everything we've talked about and turn it into some really concrete tools you can use for your exams. This is where we put it all together and practice the skills you're going to need for the baccalaureate. So here it is, a clear answer to our guiding question. The high rate of climate skepticism, it isn't about the English language itself. It's much deeper. It's about a shared ideology, one that's built on cultural individualism, market-first economics, and then amplified by a powerful and really well-funded counter-movement. Being able to give a clear, synthetic answer like this is a huge skill for your exams. Now, for your written and oral exams, you have to build strong arguments. So here's a simple 3-step method that works every time. Idea, example, explanation. First, just state your main point clearly. Second, back it up with a specific example from a document or something you know. And third, explain exactly how that example proves your point. This structure makes your arguments logical, clear, and super well supported. And finally, vocabulary. Seriously, mastering these terms will make your analysis so much stronger. For example, knowing the difference between mitigation, actions to reduce emissions, and adaptation, adjusting to the changes already happening. Using precise language like this will show your examiners that you really truly understand the topic on a deep level. So I'm going to leave you with one final question to think about. It kind of pushes our analysis a step further and opens up a whole other discussion about the tension between national identity and global challenges. It really forces us to ask, can these big, top-down international agreements ever be enough to overcome really deep-seated cultural resistance from the bottom up? It's a tough one.